about that story.
Oh yeah, I know.
So good.
All right, we're actually on. Troy, thanks for coming. Welcome to another episode of Backbone Zone. People who are watching and listening. Today I have my mate Troy Harradine on the podcast.
How you going?
You're actually on the podcast when Zach and I did the podcast.
Yeah. Back in the penny mining days. That was very fun.
Penny mining days, yeah.
So sick. So yeah, I'm actually, as always, long time listener, big supporter. So yeah, stoked to be on. And yeah.
Nah, man. Yeah, I'm stoked to have you on. We just got done at the park. I wasn't expecting to go and ride the park before doing this. It's a public holiday here today, which is pretty sick. But I kind of was half expecting to see you at the park just because you're the guy that I always look for that. Like, I'm going riding no matter the time, no matter if anyone else is riding.
Yeah.
And I get pretty inspired by that. But you were saying earlier when we were there, you were filming stuff with the tripod. What's the thing? What are you trying to do?
Yeah. So like back before COVID times, I did this. Sort of set myself this goal of seeing how many days in a row I could do a single clip and just put it on the gram. And I guess I want to do that again. And the reason is not necessarily just to show like, hey, I can do this trick, but it's just more so like 5 years down the line, I can get back, look at the clips and be like stoked and be like, oh yeah, that was sick. And then almost draw inspiration for like future self in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like it's a good habit to get into, not necessarily, again, to make yourself look good on the internet or whatever, but you sort of teach yourself in a way, because you can, if you crash something, you can go back, watch it, and then sort of work out what you've done wrong, and then go try the trick again. And like, I guess just there you're seeing there people at the park I could film with a tripod, but then also, like you said, I can go by myself anytime and film a tripod too. It's not really relying on anyone to sort of come and film, and I sort of feel like I bug people when I do that. So yeah,
I know what you mean. I feel like I'm bugging you all the time when I'm like, oh Troy, you can film this. No, I've actually done that a lot lately, just with coaching. Like, we're coaching. I'm coaching some, I guess, let's say young adults that are actually looking to further their riding, and filming is actually super handy to be like, see what you did there. Like, you actually can like understand what you're doing, and especially since I've been doing PT stuff, it's been really handy to you self film like a set that you do of say squats, and then you can identify like, oh, I'm breaking at the hips or something a little bit early, and then I can be conscious of that the next time I go in. So I don't know why I've never thought about that with BMX that much before. I've always just sort of winged it. Yeah. But I like that idea. We've been doing that a little bit. I feel like you and I do that together a lot. Like, it's one of those things where, and probably Zach Miner too, you know how we'll be riding and we have this we can critique each other in a way that's super positive. Like, yeah, it's like, I find that you can do that really well with me. Yeah, I think that comes from just looking and reviewing the clips, and sort of, you get, I don't know if people might know what I'm talking about, but you get to a point where you can sort of see where if they just tweaked a little bit more of their body in a certain position, the trick would come around for them and stuff like that. Like, tail whips are one of my favorite tricks, and like anytime I see someone doing a tail whip, I'll happily jump in and be like, all right, so you need to lean forward, but you need to do a triangle with your arms, or just like give them some sort of tip, and then they sort of get close, and then they like get super stoked, and then a lot of the times they're almost at the point of landing it, or they do land it. So and I enjoy like seeing people progress that way as well. Yeah, I love watching. It's been a big thing for me, like since we've done the whole coaching thing through the shop. It's very gratifying to see someone who couldn't do something one day, and then months later they've like through help and consistency they achieve that thing. Like, it's so sick to come to the Friday night girls sessions and see, like, even the first one I went to now, like, all of the girls are like just so far along. I know, they're ripping. Hey,
yeah,
it's
they're
crazy.
Ripping. And it's so sick, and like they're just so stoked on it too. And like, gets me more stoked to come out and like participate. And I'm just there on the sidelines clapping them on, and I love it. It's awesome. So. Yeah,
it's sick. Yeah, it's crazy to watch that progression when people can have pointers, I guess essentially be coached during
yep.
riding. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So with the, like, are you going to make like a YouTube video, web edit or something of the clips?
I think, so what I did last time was I just had them on my computer numbered, like 1 through to, I think I ended up doing like 93 days in a row or something like that.
Yeah, that's a long
and
time.
it could have to be like 3 and a bit months. So I just did like month blocks of videos on YouTube or...
Sure.
And then like I even put them on Instagram TV if anyone looks at that. I don't know.
Is that still around?
I don't know. I don't think so. But I just like I said, just like having a reference point of like last year I was doing this, maybe a little lower, then I'm doing it this time, like next year or something like that. Like it's a good indicator of your progression in a way. And not
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have this Ride UK magazine article. It was Brian Foster's interview, and he was talking about progression, and for him it's like he used to be able to air 6 feet, now he can air 7, so it's like progression is so good to mark down, I think, because I mean you've been riding for a long time, I've been riding for a long time. I think it's good to be like, oh no, I actually am like still progressing my riding, because you can get like I don't know about you, but I tend to get pretty hard on myself,
I can, and I think I found the way to break that is just trying to ride different parks. So like, I find like at Canberra locals may or may not know, but like we go ride Fadden Bowl, which is essentially this 40-year-old skate park that's built terribly, but because of the double king quarter, it sort of forces you to think about more pumping the ramp and like breaking things down a bit more, and keeps it a bit more fresh in your mind. Same with any other smaller park, just like riding the same big smooth ramps is super fun, but it also can sort of wear you out a bit and get a bit tired of doing the same lines at the same park all the time. So it's good to break it up, go to smaller parks, and that's something I try to do a lot of. And people ask me like, oh, why would you ride there? But that's why. It's just
for sure. That's cool, man. Like I always am very impressed with, you're always out and about going to different places. Like, you'll go to like Gunning Skate Park or some little skate park a few hours away. You just came back from a trip over the last few days, the last weekend. Yeah. And, went and rode some parks that people may not put on their bucket list to go and ride. Yeah. But I think that's cool.
We, me and my friend Ollie Irvine, we decided, we're like, all right, well, we've ridden all these parks. We're a bit tired of riding just Woden skate park. So I was like, all right, I'll go on skateboard.com, search how far out west we can go in a weekend. So we ended up choosing Griffith Skate Park. And it was just hammering rain on the Friday. And I was like, should we do it? Should we not do it? And I was like, well, if you let the weather dictate what you're doing, you'll never do anything. So we just went out, and literally every park we went to, super fun to ride. And we lucked out breaking the weather every time we stopped. Yeah. And so Ollie especially, he's like always down to film and things like that. It sort of helps me, because he's probably the only person I'm like, I'm not too bothered about asking him to film, because he's like always down for the cause, and like super positive too. Like similar to you and I, he would give feedback. I'm like, well, maybe you do this a little bit different or anything like that. But we did a weekend trip out there, stopped in at Will Kerr's, got to ride young with him, and like again I was trying to teach him tail whips. So it's
dude,
cool.
He's close. He actually tried to pump one out when I went and did the podcast with him.
Was he on the big yellow?
On the yellow bike, but out of the mini. I was like, his indoor ramp, it's not like the biggest deck, and he almost pumped a tail whip out. I was pretty psyched.
We had him doing bars as well.
I know, he pumps out the baries too. You would never expect it from him.
Yeah, but I just think like that stuff's important. Going with your friends to ride parks you wouldn't ride usually, and just like, because it's not necessarily even the skate park, it's like the experiences you have away from the park, like go and get dinner with your friends, hanging out, having a good time, and things like that. Sure, yeah. And like, that's like just a secondary thing. Like riding's a secondary thing to actually hanging out with your mates. I feel on trips like that.
On trips like that, for sure.
If you luck out, get a couple photos, get a couple clips, it makes it all worth it. So,
yeah. I think like the times that we've been on trips together. And we do get that bonding that happens in between the parks, but even from the riding perspective, when everyone rocks up to a new skate park that no one's ever been to before, it almost doesn't matter the level of the park, like everyone's kind of bonding over this experience of like, oh, I wonder if like we can even do this on this little 3-foot ramp, or like oh, the ramps are real kinked and crook, like they're no fun to ride, but because everyone's there and they have to ride it, well, they don't have to ride it, but everyone ends up being really like positive about the experience. Whereas I think when you're at home and you're riding the local park, I have found myself getting into this thought process, and I really recognize that I need to stop it, is that I'll overly critique the parks that I'm blessed to have. Like,
yeah, it's funny you say that, because I was saying to Will when I was there, I was like, you don't realize how not grateful you are to have these awesome parks that you get to ride every day. And then when you go to these parks, you're like, oh, like I only got one chance to ride this. And like you sort of get a new perspective on it, I guess.
For sure,
if that sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
well, totally, man. Because I mean, like for you and me, like that quarter that we just did flares on over there, I would never. I'm never like, oh, that's a quarter that I want to do anything on. But if nothing else was around, that would be a great quarter.
Yep.
But I choose to ride this other quarter. But now, because of the whole flare thing and it's like a little bit flatter, all of a sudden you're like, oh no, that's a great quarter. So I think having your mind be not stuck in that way, just always be open to new experiences with BMX. Like, you've definitely showed me that. I think probably because you're just very positive in the way that you ride. Anyway, you're never fazed by like you said. It probably just comes from you riding different hard to ride stuff, but like that positivity shines through. Very infectious, because then you're like, why am I so worried about not having the perfect thing to ride all the time, you know?
Yeah, it gives you like a sense of like, oh, I'm grateful to be here, so let's get down and have some fun and try whatever on this ramp. And like usually you find if you ride the harder parks, like you double Kings Fadden Bowl or something, you go to a skate park with a good quarter, the tricks are easier.
Yeah,
like
for
it's
sure.
Like, no, and that's just like not even intentional, it just happens like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
for sure.
Another reason why I love
that
sort of style.
So with I rocked up, you were filming, you've done a lot of these sort of challenges. I've seen you set challenges for yourself, and he even had a list of tricks that you wanted to do.
Yep.
And to me, I think that's an admirable quality to be like. I think people get the wrong impression sometimes about having like things that you want to do and things that you want to achieve in BMX. And I actually really like thinking in that way now, because you prove to me that you can have as much fun, you can have more fun than anyone riding, but then you still you're very goal orientated, and I think it's a cool way. Well, you've taught me that's a cool way to keep riding fresh, because this morning I never would have thought, like, I didn't even think I was going to ride at all. I thought we were just going to do the podcast, and then you're over there and, like I said, you're pretty infectious with like being driven to do something, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh man, I wonder if I can wall tap this thing, and I wonder if I can. So it's really cool, man. Like I love watching that. But what I'm sort of getting at is that one of the things that you've been doing you were doing for a long time was the whole YouTube channel. Yep. And that was I guess a few years ago now, so maybe refresh my memory on what it was that brought you to being like, I'm going to do like a YouTube channel with BMX vlogs. And
so I guess I could even go back 13 years. Like my friend Jack Gruber and I, we would just film each other riding like you do when you're coming up. You get a camera, you film your mates, and you just make edits like this, the standard way, throw them up online. And back then you weren't worried about numbers or anything like that. I'm still not, to be honest, but like, it was just like, it's something fun to do. And, away from BMX, I make videos for Zach Miner and stuff like that. And I just enjoy the process of making videos. So, back then I was just sort of making BMX videos. And that's sort of when the upsweep of like the BMX vlog sort of came in, and it was more dominant, that style of video versus traditional web edit. So I was like, maybe I'll just go down the park and film the boys and hang out. And similar feeling to go on a road trip, going to the park and filming with your mates. It's sort of like a time capsule thing. So I looked at it like that. I was like, oh, well, we're having a session today. I'll film it, put it up, not thinking about, if it's going to get 100 likes or anything like that. Just film it and just like have something there, so in 5 years I can go back and be like, oh, that was a sick day, and like nostalgia obviously a very powerful thing. So I did that, and then like there was a block. I sort of did me and the boys. I had a few different, like obviously the ages of 17 to 20 people come in and come out. BMX, they find different hobbies, and that's cool. But I obviously stuck with it, and whoever stuck with it came with me, and I filmed them. And then eventually got to a point it sort of died down a bit, so I just started doing my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, took some inspiration from some skater YouTubers, and I was like, oh yeah, these dudes are doing like artistic sort of videos about themselves, so I'll do the same thing. Had a good bit of momentum going, but I relied too heavily on Saturday and the weather. So we had a run of like 3 or 4 rainy Saturdays, and then I sort of like stopped, sporadically upload video every now and then eventually tape it off. But one of the like shining lights that came from it was that a fellow in America reached out to me. His name's Mason, and he was like, oh, do you want to do a game of bike over YouTube? And I was like, oh,
crazy.
Yeah, no worries. So we went back and forth a little bit, and then like it eventually evolved into him asking me to come over. And like pretty anxious at the time. I just got back from a trip to China with Mike Ross. Yeah. We went to FICE, which is a whole nother story, which like some really just weird, not weird things, but like just situation that I never thought we'd be in. We were there. Well, maybe we can come back to that. But
yeah, for sure.
Anyway, I was like, all right, I'll buy my ticket over and hopefully he picks me up from the airport. And then ended up flying over, met like all their FT Collective boys. So like Robert, Tristan, Zach, James, and then there's Mason as well. Hopefully I didn't forget anyone. that would be part. But yeah, and like rode for 2 weeks, went to the first Swamp Fest. And
wow.
So
the first
ever Swamp Fest.
Man.
And like I didn't even know it was on. I just turned up the weekend before, and I was like, yeah, there's this thing on this weekend. You want to go? I was like, yeah, all right, no worries.
Wow, that's pretty sick.
Yeah, and so we went to that, and then I came back for 2 weeks, and then a year later I went back for 6 weeks, and then like sort of been back and forth. Ended up going over for a week to coach at Woodward.
What?
Yeah, with the team. Like, so I guess what I'm trying to say is like, from doing videos on YouTube, just like about myself, it sort of opened a door to all these other things that was like not even associated with YouTube, and like something I never thought I'd be at Woodward,
dude, that's
coaching
so
kids for a week
sick.
or something like that.
Far out, man. I have so many questions. So like,
yep.
Okay, so you started the YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty. You were just consistent, from what I could see anyway. Like,
yep.
You know, even doing weekly videos. You were doing weekly videos, right?
I was, yeah, for a long time, yeah.
Yeah, and that was probably what 2016
it was.
16?
Yeah, because it was. I sort of wrapped up as me and Mikey flew out to China. Okay. So I did a video. So me and Mikey did like a little series doing the FICE comps. Yeah. And then it sort of came back and sort of died down a bit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so because I agree with the vlogs thing, I don't tend to have as negative of a view on it, because the way that you were doing it, and because I know you so well, it was not narcissistic at all. All it was you were almost like making more fun for yourself and for everyone else. You know, like I think it's almost like if there's 10 people riding over at the park, then there's 10 people riding over at the park. But if you say that there's a jam on at the park and there's 10 people, then all of a sudden, oh, sick jam. You know, so it's kind of it kind of has a bit of a more, I don't know exactly how to explain it, but the feeling is a little bit more exciting. You know, like there's a bit more of a vibe in the air when you're like, oh, I'm filming something. Yeah,
people sort of get hyped, I feel, and like, oh, well, I'm trying this, but maybe I'd give it a little bit more.
Yeah,
like,
maybe I can actually try and land this trick or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and, you know, for me as well, like, and not many people would know this, but, well, people know that I'm into fitness or whatever, but one of the biggest ways that I was able to start learning so much was to actually watch like fitness vlogs.
Yep.
Because you get a sense of an actual person's doing this, not just an instructional video, but they're kind of like teaching you along the way. And some of it's like boring or whatever, but like I could really see through something that wasn't in BMX that it wasn't really that big of a deal to just film like things that are happening in your life, because I can totally see how going back to it, you would be like, holy shit, I can't believe that's what we did that day. But anyhow, so like, yeah, I actually, I watched a whole bunch of your videos, and then I remember you were saying that you were going to Florida, and didn't you end up meeting up with Adam LZ?
Yeah, so that was like the funniest thing to me, because like he was one of the people I'd watched and like sort of tried to model my channel after.
Yeah. So explain who Adam LZ is, I guess.
I'm probably going to do a really bad job of it. Someone will roast me for it, but pretty much he was a fella that sort of led the charge. It was him and this other fella, Bocker from the UK, led the charge of this video concept called Webisodes. Essentially just a vlog with your mates doing all this crazy stuff. And I used to watch him all the time, and then just so happened the fella that messaged me was moving to Florida and taking Adam's spot in the house.
Oh, okay, sure.
And when he invited me over, I actually met the whole crew that was filming with Adam, which is now the FTE boys. And like, I just couldn't believe, I guess, like the chances of that. And then so got there, and I think he'd just finished building his ramp. And this is actually a pretty funny story. And I was riding the ramp, and then like Trey Jones turned up.
Sure.
And all I can remember is I did this 270 table over the hip, and he yode me, and I was just like the most stoked dude the whole time.
That's so sick.
And
dude, that's so cool.
like, yeah, it was the funniest thing. But yeah, so Adam, just started these videos. I copied them, and then sort of by chance, a fella that was moving into his house, I became friends with, moved into, and now I'm friends with all the boys. I've met Adam a handful of times, but he'd be like, oh, who's that? Oh, you know what I mean? But yeah,
for sure.
He's a busy dude, and he's a very successful fella. So
Yeah. But no, that's really cool, that you've built all these friendships now from these videos that you made.
Yeah.
Like that's a really good point. It's like, and it's something that I've said to people in the past as well. It's like, there's very few cultures, and let's just say that BMX is a sport, but then it's also a culture, but there's very few things that you can get into where all of a sudden, so you're down the park, and then all of a sudden you get to meet like your idol, or in your case, you filmed some YouTube videos, not expecting anything, just taking the idea of filming yourself with your mates, and then fast forward a little bit, and all of a sudden you're at the most successful BMX YouTuber's house, riding with people that are like Trey Jones is like, yo, that doesn't happen. It's not like you can go play football down like the local footy club, and unless you're exceptionally gifted, it's not like all of a sudden you're meeting like I don't know, high fiving the dudes as they run on for State of Origin or something.
That's right.
And I love that about BMX. It's like there's not. I mean, you're putting in a lot of effort. Don't get me wrong. Like it's really good to remain consistent like that. But you were just filming your mates. All of a sudden, boom, you're like meeting up with these dudes, and you've formed these friendships in the US, and very cool, man. Like, the consistency thing, like, is that something, and just that goal-driven idea that you've kind of like cultivated, is that something, like, where does that even come from?
I don't know. It's just keeping busy in the hour, like just keeping it moving. Yeah. One of my friends said to me, as long as you keep it moving, everything else seems easy. So, like, if you focus on, I'm focused on my drone photography and BMX, so they're my two sort of things I'm focused on, and then everything on the side is sort of like off the back of being positive in these two things, everything else sort of falls into place, if that makes sense. Okay. So like I try to keep consistent with the riding and, positive at the park to people I meet and things like that. Yeah. Because I find like it bleeds into other aspects of life, really.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, so because you work full time.
Yeah. Yep. 7 till 3 every Monday to Friday.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So you're still, it's not like you've just got all this free time, but you're still making it happen. it kind of sounds like you are still keeping BMX the focus, you know, like having your drone photography the focus, and I guess working is a means to an end to make that stuff happen. Is that what I'd be right?
I mean, like, I think you've covered it in the podcast before, but like Australian BMX, you're not gonna make a living necessarily being a professional rider. So, and I learned that a long time ago. So I was like, all right, well, if what do I want to do to keep this fun and like still have a good time? So like I've tried to find the balance, which is ride, film clips. I find that the most rewarding part, and like hanging out with your friends, meeting new people, helping people get better. That's all like super rewarding. And so I was like, all right, well, that's what I'm going to focus on. And then anything that comes off the back of that is just like, you know, a gift, I guess. I think like fortunate enough that Colin reached out after I did those 93 videos in a row.
Sure.
And that was not the end goal at all. I was just doing my thing. I was like, oh, you know, and like some of the clips weren't even like I would just like mucking around like doing X-ups and things like that. Like they weren't like, you know, you see people do like double flips or double flares or whatever and like just going hard. But I wasn't really even going hard. I was just like, I was keeping consistent. And yeah, just off the back of that, you know, fortunate. It was, just super unexpected, to be honest. I didn't like, you know, and I don't know if other people do, but like I don't really have a big ticket on myself in regards to like my riding. Like I'm not like I'm at the park, I'm the best rider here, you know. But like I'm just there and I'm like, oh, I'll try this, and if it works out, it works out, and if it doesn't, like you just see me try a trick like for half an hour and didn't get it, but I was like, I crashed a couple times. I was like, oh well, it didn't happen. We'll just
that's good that you've got that mentality, because you can certainly get pissed off if you're not making it happen. So that because I was going to ask you about Colony. So like that just came again from you being consistent. Yeah,
I guess. I think I don't know. I think I got a good word put in for me by Zach. I think, but yeah, like I guess I talked to Coops a couple times about photography things, and like I actually just kept putting videos up, and it just came out of that. So
that's cool, man.
Yeah, like I said, I wasn't like tagging him or anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, like it just. I still, honestly, to this day, I'm just like, how? Even like riding, you know, getting to ride for Back Bone for like the last 6 years and stuff like that. I'm just like, I just don't, like, it just doesn't, like, I don't know, just chuffed.
Yeah, dude. Well, that's the whole thing, though. It's like I think that's, the being consistent is obviously one thing, but, you know, you affect so many people in positive ways that, like, a level of riding almost can't touch, or it's like it's different now, you know. I don't think that you'd have to be the best rider, and it's not that you're a bloody good rider, so don't get it twisted. But you know, like I think that it almost means more now to do things that are a bit more meaningful, you know, like when you're at the park and when you're doing these different avenues where you're filming every single day like a clip. I think that resonates with people, and it would probably I would say that it would resonate with Colony, like it resonates with us, you know, like you're a good dude that has always been injecting positive vibes into the scene, you know. So I think that's like that would be one of the many reasons why you ride for the shop, you know. It's the consistency thing is definitely key though. Like it's like we've been talking about a little bit with the whole YouTube thing, and I kind of want to get into that with you.
Yep.
Like I'm trying to make this podcast so that like I'm just like I've got to do a year, you know. Like if I don't do a year consistent of Thursdays, then or of weekly ones. It was on Wednesday, but it's just I'm not gonna be able to be like in a year's time be like, okay, cool, I've kept doing it. And I would love to see you do something like that again. Like we were talking a little bit about YouTube, so maybe we can float some ideas out there.
All right. So I think this is what I've just for like the last month. I don't know if it's just the spring air, but every time around September, I get like this push. Maybe longer days. I'm like, oh, you know what? I could probably film some videos and stuff like that. I guess what I would want to see for myself making consistent videos. Back in the day when I went to doing it for myself, it was, all right, if I ride like this, I got to think about camera angle, and those got to improve every week. And like, this sounds like I'm really strict on myself. I'm not definitely, but I wanted to get better at filming, get better at riding.
Yeah.
And so obviously the consistency is the key. And I guess, I just wanted to progress. The only thing I want to get better at now, because I can do I still got to get better at it, but I can frame everything up. I want to improve my riding, of course, but I also want to get better at telling a story. Because I've watched some old videos and I'm like, well, this doesn't really have a story. I'm just going and doing this thing. But like, I feel like if I was like, okay, I want to improve this today, I'm going to try these tricks, and if I get one of the 3 or 2 of the 5 or whatever I choose to do, that'll be a win. And tells a story of like, he was this good at the start, he's this good at the end, or he could ride like this at the start, he could ride like this at the end.
Yeah, sure. Well, like, so put the clips that you don't land. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I feel like that's for like kids starting out, or like just getting into it, seeing someone who usually just does all the tricks and there's not really any crashes. Like, say if just as an example, the only person I can think of now, like Logan Martin, put up clips of him crashing, which I don't know if that's possible. But like, if he put up kids, it'd be like more relatable, because you don't land everything first try.
Yeah.
Even like, you seen, I was trying to fakie whip today and I didn't get that first try, but the only clip I'm going to put up is the clip of me landing it, not the 2 tries of where I got close or where I fell over or anything like that. So I think it's more relatable to see someone struggle and then get that payoff at the end. So that's why I'd sort of like to form my videos around, I think, and just like sort of learn how to tell a story a bit better.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think for the shop, I think what I'd like to see, I don't know if anyone else would, I'm sure they would be like, get the team dudes, just put a picture of them, be like, all right, Will Gunn's riding Civic Skate Park today. Send us some DMs what tricks you want to see him do.
Sure.
I think they used to do Instagram slams back in the day. Maybe it was the come up or something. But just like, you don't have, like, you can directly copy that idea. Like, totally, I don't think anyone's doing it at the moment. I think that would be a really cool concept to bring back.
Yeah, that is a pretty cool concept. That's a very cool. It'll be interesting, and it would be fun to film like the process, like you said, as well as the tricks that they do. Because that's what they did, right? In the come up, or whoever it was that did it, there was like, people asked them to do like let's say a 360 whip, and then they would be like, fuck, I don't know, I haven't done one of them in 5 years or something. So it would be like the process, like, and that's what makes it relatable. Yeah, I think relativity is a big thing, man. Like, I agree with that. Like, we see so much high level shit, like, not just in BMX, but if you go on Instagram, like, everything is like the best of the best all the time, and that's what the whole Instagram versus reality is about. And even when people, like, the reality is not even the reality, you know what I mean? But like, the ability to see someone like Logan Martin and his process and the crashes that it took, not in like a super dramatic way, but it would actually elevate his riding, I think.
I think so too.
Because you would then be like, oh, he's not just this machine that can just do everything at the drop of a hat. Although maybe Logan Martin's a bad example, because he probably can. But, like, things are hard. Things are really hard to do, and people don't often see that. And people don't see afterwards, like you showed me your frame after you tried the half cab whips, and it's like covered in blood from your ankle. Yeah. But people don't really see that, and that it's real life, and that there's real life consequences to trying something. And I would love young kids to understand that things are hard, because I think the biggest thing as to why a lot of young kids drop out of BMX, and I'm talking like younger kids that get into it, is they're flooded with information on riding, and by information I mean, you can go on YouTube and you can just watch endless videos of BMX riding at high level, and they kind of expect that I need to be able to do that. So then they're like, I've been riding for 3 weeks and I can't do this. And it's like, no, like, all that stuff not only is a compilation of the best riding that person can do, but it's also took them a long time, and it took them a lot of crashes and a lot of like, that dude might have had a broken ankle, you know, you never know. So I think it's a good idea to really get back to that relative and realistic nature of what BMX is.
Yeah, I think Cooper does it for Colony. He puts the video out and then he has a raw cut, so you can actually see how many tries it takes, and they're cool to watch because you're like, oh, okay, he didn't get that Pegs Hard 3 first go. It took him. You know, sometimes it takes. Like I remember we were filming for my Colony video, for example, and I went to a spot 4 separate days, 2 hours at a time. Didn't get it, and like finally got it, but like it took all up 8 hours and like 4 trips over 4 days. Man. So like, yeah, and that's why like I always like try keep it consistent as well. So like whenever I've got a filmer out, I'm not bringing them out 4 days in a row.
Yeah,
it's good to like have those tricks sort of on lock. That's why I try to going back to the consistency thing. That's what I'm like trying to do. I actually do have a question.
Yeah,
and I don't know if you will be able to answer it, but for like I said, the 17 to 20-year-olds that drop out, I find a lot of them are actually really good. And do you think they drop out because it's almost too easy and not challenging enough for them? Because like I think of my friend Geordie, who could do like 360 double bar spins, double tail whips. He could do it all, and it was relatively easy for him. And like if he stuck to it, he could be, I would say, up on the Gold Coast doing his thing with all the other boys.
Yeah, sure.
But it was like almost too easy, and he's just like lost interest with it because it wasn't challenging enough.
Yeah, I don't know, because it's a hard one to answer for me, because I, believe it or not, and this is just the way I feel about myself, I've never felt like BMX has come easy to me. So like it's always a challenge to me. So maybe that's what keeps me interested in it. Because
I feel like that's what keeps me interested, is like the challenge of, and that's the goal setting is like, oh, this is a challenge. This is what you got to do, and don't stop until you get it. Yeah,
I wonder if it is that, or I wonder if it's that I mean, I'm sure someone would maybe be able to answer this question in the comments. Who knows? Maybe there's an extra ex-BMX rider out there that has quit and they were really good, but could it be to do with the fact that they're not getting rewarded for their skill? Or it's an interesting one, man. Like I sort of have that similar thought about a lot of BMX riders. I'm like, man, I cannot believe that dude doesn't ride anymore to the same level. But the young 17 to 20, you're right, like there's definitely a few riders that drop out that are really, really good. And I also wonder like if it's that they end up coming back to it and they were like, man, I wish I had never given this up, you know? Because I've heard about being in the window, which is like the 17 to 24, you know, when you just are invincible and you can just do anything, which I do think that that's true to an aspect, but I also think that as you get older, you can stay in that window, or maybe the window doesn't exist, and once you hit 30 and over 30, it's almost like you have a renewed drive. So just as a side note, like I feel like if there's someone that's listening and they're like, oh, I don't ride anymore and I've lost it, if they just jump back on a consistency like we've been talking about, they get it back like that, you know. I mean, Aiden Chard is a good one. I don't know if anyone knows who Aiden Chard is, but like he doesn't ride as much, but that dude's an absolute freak. Oh yeah, he's one of the best. Yeah, like I think he won Act Jam one year, but you know he's an absolute freak. But it's almost like I would just love to know the reason why he doesn't stick with it. Probably like your mate Geordie, I guess. Just too easy. Just got to find something. Need something harder. Switch your feet up. Come at it. If you're left foot forward, all of a sudden just be right foot forward and let's see how you go. Yeah, I really want to see. That's the big thing. You know, I'm sure you in asking that are probably thinking it would be sick to just have more riders in the scene, right?
Yes and no. Like, I mean, everyone's got their own choices and things like that.
Sure.
So I can't like be mad at someone wants to go do something else and not ride or anything. But like there, like in Canberra now, especially the kids coming through are like so nice and like super. Like everyone's just progressing it, like, just so quick. It's so sick. I feel like in Canberra, especially, and it's always been the way for like the 14 years I've been riding. Is like everyone's always wanted an indoor park, but almost feel like having an indoor park would, I don't know how to explain this, would take away from the scene because if you're riding in Canberra through a winter and you know it's brutal, it just shows how like much you love doing it, and like it sort of makes you appreciate it riding more, if that sort of makes sense. Like it, I feel like you could take for granted have an indoor park and you're like, oh, I don't have to ride this week because sorry, let me go back. I can ride this week because it's raining outside, but I got an indoor park. But you sort of keep that stoke through the week that it is raining. So it gets to Sunday. Like this week's a perfect example. It's raining till Sunday. I'm already keen for Sunday session. Yeah. Like your stoke builds up and then you like go out and ride and you like just rewarded for the patience.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. The Canberra BMX scene has a bit of a different vibe to it because of that. I think everyone is a bit more tight knit because we're all going through this, the brutal winters and the rain and whatnot. And I think maybe the size of it as well. Everyone seems to be a bit more together. Everyone wants to be riding and everyone's happy to see each other. So there's not really, there's this scene down there and they don't talk to this scene, which is good. Yeah, the YouTube thing's an interesting one, man. Like, I think that it's the way I think it's the way forward for BMX in terms of media. And I know that not really saying anything new. It's not like what's YouTube, but
what is YouTube?
Like I've spoken to a few people over the course of probably the last 10 years, ever since basically BMX magazines have died, and everyone's like, someone should do another BMX magazine. And I don't think that's necessarily true, because if you were to do another BMX magazine, it has to be bloody good.
Yeah. For
one, and for two, I just don't know if people consume media in that same sort of way.
I think the instantaneous media that is presented probably more on the gram at the moment is the way that it obviously has gone. And like print would be like, it's like a core group of people that love print, but like I feel like if you're trying to get people that are on like not necessarily outskirts of BMX and like trying to get into it or just into it, they're probably not going to go get a magazine that's $40 or something like that. They're going to more want just free content that's online.
For sure, yeah.
And I feel like when we cover like, I don't know could make change, but thinking of like BMX contests and how they're covered, it would be sick to have proper like interviews with the riders and stuff like that. But the nature of these sort of contests, I don't know if it's still too core for that to happen. But I think like everyone always says we need BMX to grow and stuff like that. But then like when someone suggests something like that to the core, it's sort of pushed away. But I feel like it needs to be embraced more like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, dude. Like, you have to be willing, if something's the same, that's the definition of insanity, right? If you do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, then that's the definition of insanity. And I think that if we want to see the scene grow, then we've got to take risks and take chances to do something different. So that's like, the club Back Bone thing, we're trying to legitimize BMX. And I think a lot of hardcore dudes would probably be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we don't need to legitimize BMX, but we kind of do, like there's a reason why you can't feel like if you're hard done by and you can't get things going and there's not a sick skate park in every town and 6 set of trails or whatever it is, it's because if we look at what we've been doing over history, that's what's got us to that point. So we need to maybe think like, okay, so what can we do to change so that then we can get better? So I agree, like it would be cool to, I actually look at it, and I'm not even a big, huge footy fan, but there's so much surrounding the NRL, you can watch pre-game shows where they're talking about like, oh, we've, you know, blah blah blah, has just come off an injury and all that stuff, and that excites people. Like, that creates fandom and, you know, fanatics and stuff like that.
Well, that's like just storytelling, right? It's like, it was Nick Bruce, I think, went into the Olympics and he was injured. Like, he wanted to ride the Olympics, and that's why he didn't do anything in his runs, because he was actually injured. But like, being in the first Olympics, why wouldn't you take that chance? So if you had the story like, oh yeah, he'd done his ACL before he went out onto the course, and you know, that's why he's riding like this. You sort of have an explanation, not just like, oh, here's BMX and here's Nick Bruce just riding the ramps doing one footies.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And again, that's that keeping it relative. You know, like you watch the. You know, you watch the Eels beat the Raiders. Heartbreaking. Riss was cheering. No, but you know, you watch that, but it's, if you had no context about it and you just jumped in and there was even no commentary in the game and you were just watching it to music, it'd be like kind of cool for a couple of minutes maybe, but then you'd be like, over this shit, like, and turn it off. And BMX is kind of stuck in that, you know, like. I mean, you're starting to see it with, like you say, like Colony do that the raw edit, which is really fun to watch. I actually like watching those better than the actual edit, because you still see the tricks, but you see like what it took to get there. Exactly like what we were saying. But you know, the Red Bull videos, for example, the things that come to mind is Remy Morton. You know, the raw 100 is like the 100 seconds of him doing the edited riding, which is sick. But the thing that's sicker to me is seeing all of the shit that he had to do to get there, and the fact that it's like 40 something degrees outside and it's super hot and the dirt sucks, and you know, him and only two mates built this thing, and then that gives you context to then appreciate what's happening. So you're exactly right. That would be really sick to do with ActJam, actually. Get like a roving reporter. Oh, we're here with Troy Harradine. What do you reckon about the course, Troy? Should have built more ramps.
Can't fake you for any of that.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool to document just maybe the epic portion of it, like how the ramps are going together, what the design process is and things like that.
Yeah, that's a
like
good
just
idea.
Some backstory. I don't know if you've seen it or if anyone watching has seen it, but like you see that Kieran Riley did the triple flare, and that was like an 8-second clip on Instagram. But then you go watch the 10-minute video of like, he tried it on this ramp first, didn't work, built a whole new ramp just to do it, and like slammed so many times. That's like perfect sort of stuff BMX
Perfect.
needs, I feel.
Yeah, that's an exact example. You know, like I loved watching that part, and it actually gave me context to the type of dude that Kieran Riley is. Like, you think of him as Trick Machine or whatever, but then you watch that video and it's like, I tend to give up on tricks if it's not working after like 3 goes or something.
Yeah.
Because you just don't want to take the slams. But, you know, the fact that they had to think about the ramp, and then they had to change the ramp because it actually didn't work properly, like that shit's exciting to me. And I think that would be a really good way of broadcasting BMX competitions. I think you're totally right there, Troy. We need to get onto the feast guys, and maybe we can be roving commentators.
I'd love to, because you could do like I just thinking of it now, like there's a points race in feast. It's like each stop you get points, but I'm not too involved, so I don't know. It could already exist, but like, are there people covering the points race and be like, well, he's got a position. Get second position in this comp to win the overall or something like that towards the end, you know?
Yeah, totally,
so like,
man.
is someone following that and is someone covering that?
Yeah.
Because then that brings like a story to it, and then more viewers would, I feel, get involved in it.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's just something I think about. Anyway.
Yeah. Telling the backstory is really cool. Yeah, I mean, like, why isn't this stuff cool? You know what I mean? Like, it's exactly right. Like, people, you know, I guess poo-poo all this shit about BMX being, you know, not doing those sorts of things, and why would we do it? Because it's hardcore. But then the same person watches the footy, and they like watching the preseason. You know, they like watching the post-game talks, you know, with the guys that used to play, and they're like discussing it all. Like, I'm obviously not an expert at all that stuff, because I don't, don't really follow the footy. But you can watch that stuff for half an hour, and all of a sudden you're like pretty hyped up to watch the footy. Like I literally did that. Like I wouldn't say that I'm an Eels fan, but I kind of feel like it rubs off Risty so much that I kind of go for the Eels. Like I want to see them win. But so I watched the Raiders v Eels when I was in Melbourne. But the thing was, we had it on a bit earlier, and by the time it got to kick off, I was actually excited because they were talking about like all the different people that had injuries. You know, like Mitchell Moses like had concussion and all that sort of shit. So it's like, you're exactly right, man. Like I think once we start celebrating the journey and the things that it takes to get there, that would be really fun to see, and really beneficial for BMX in general. I think really makes it out to be something that's difficult and something that's worth attempting as well. So
yeah, I think even talking about like the history of it and things like that sort of makes you buy in more too.
For sure, yeah.
For sure, like why they're running this style bike on this course and things like that. Like just like people love analytical things.
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah,
definitely some context. Now, I just want to say, going back to the Feist story.
Oh yeah. Tell me about the Feist story. Yeah,
I rode amateurs and got 8th, so my highest accolade ever, of course. And then Mikey rode the pros and got 26th, and it was the top 25 qualify.
Sure.
So there was a big meeting after. We didn't know what was going on, and we get pulled into this room, and it was the first.
Like you and Mikey.
Yeah, me and Mikey got pulled into this room, and it was the first meeting arranging the Olympics for BMX. And like, I guess, like just getting in like situations like that where like, how did we get into this spot? Like we had no input. We were just sitting in the back corner with our arms crossed, like, what are we doing here? But like, you know, like we were in a room with like Kevin Peraza and stuff like that, and they were just all discussing the Olympics. So it was like, to see the Olympics last year was like the end of a story in a way for myself, because I was like, I was at the first meeting for this. Not that I had any input, but I seen the product of the group getting together.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was just so sick.
No
I was like,
way.
couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
and I was obviously starstruck because Kevin Peraza was one of my favourite riders. I'm like,
yeah. Man, that's so crazy. It's so cool that you went over to China, hey?
Yeah, middle of China, Chengdu.
Yeah.
Yeah, before it, 2016 it was. So Mikey just was like, just come along. And I was like, I've never been overseas before. This would be easy. And it was anything but.
Yeah. What, did you practice Mandarin or something before?
I only knew how to say hello and no. And I remember walking across the road, and this woman was like, I love you, I love you, I love you. And I was just like, no.
Wow.
But it was cool.
Dude, that's sick.
Stories like that, I like the reason I just enjoy BMX, because it's like, again, just secondary things like you don't expect. And getting to hang out with pros, like, or people that you wouldn't think you'd cross paths with, that you think of the big shots. Well, they are the big shots, and like you just they're so accessible.
For sure.
Like I remember the last trip I went on. This is just the funniest thing, and my friend Rob will probably laugh at this. We were just hanging out, and Brian Fox, X Games bronze medalist, was in town, and my friend Rob's really good friends with him. I've rode with him a couple times before, and like we're friends too. And he's like, I'm having a birthday. Do you want to come over for dinner? So like, no worries, I'll come over to the apartment. And like back in the day when I started making YouTube videos, I used to watch, I don't know if you know who AJ Anaya is.
Yeah.
Tuesdays.
Dude, I've ridden with that. I rode Posh.
True.
Yeah.
He's super lovely dude. And he, he's like, we're going to AJ's house for my birthday dinner. And so like, I've got this photo on my phone, and it's just like me looking like a stunned mullet. And it's AJ and I here, and Brian Fox here.
Oh, no way.
And we're just singing over it. It's so funny. And like, like just stuff like that. It's super cool. And just like, I guess the FTE boys really taught me that like hanging with your friends and not having much money and just doing it for the sake of doing it is the way to do it. Like, my friend Tristan, big supporter of the shop. Like he froths every time an episode comes out, and like messages me all the time. He's like, I'm watching Will Kerr's one today, and he seems like he's a bit of a sick cunt, isn't he? But like he's big.
Thanks, Tristan.
I'm also letting Tristan. I'm gonna let him know that TJP is one of his favourite riders too.
Dude. But no, it's those dudes. I think they came to the shop, right? A few of them did.
All of them.
They
came and it's funny because everything I'm talking about now is just off the back of consistently making videos with no expectation. But yeah, they came across and we did road trip up to Sydney with like 7 of us. Came back, all some of them went home, and then me, Rob and Mason did the 12 Apostles all the way out to the Gold Coast, and like just ticked off bucket list
Wow,
things,
that's
filming
sick,
and taking photos.
That's really sick. And their FTE is for the experience.
For the experience,
so
that's right.
Makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, my friend Rob, he takes a lot of, he's a film photographer, and he put out a book, and it's like, I have a copy. If anyone in Canberra wants to borrow it to read it, it's very, or you can get one as well. Probably get one. But just like stories of on the road, and like,
oh, cool.
He's very similar. It's all BMX related, but it's also secondary stuff. Like, I'm thinking, I don't know if it's in the book. There's a photo of it, but we were in Florida. We drove to this little country area called Switzerland, Florida.
Okay.
And this dude just had a 6-foot spine ramp in his backyard. And so we rode that, set up a tent and like hammocks and stuff like that, and just camped out the night. And it's just like, that's like the magic of BMX, I feel.
Totally, man.
And that's why I feel like that's why people love it so much.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, I think you kind of, just even with that little story, you got me excited to, go on a trip and experience BMX. Like, it's such a good feeling. And again, like, I feel like those sorts of things that you do, you never know where it could lead you. Like, or you've done all this stuff for BMX, not expecting anything, and yet you've had these crazy experiences where, you're sitting with like X Games medalists, and like you're in the back of this whatever in China, in back of a room, and then they're talking about the Olympics, and like some of your BMX idols are there. Like, it's so crazy that we have that ability just by riding, and not by not limiting your experience. You went to Feast, but you don't think of yourself as like a Feast rider. Like,
what are you talking about? I'm born ready for this.
But like, you're going, and because you went, you get to have this memory that will probably last forever.
Yeah, and that's right. And like, we made a video about it, and I can go back now. What is it? 6 years later, and watch it, and I can still have the same feeling. And nostalgia is powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And you can be like, Mikey, you should ride BMX again.
I wish. No, that boy is doing it well.
Oh, he's doing it very well. Yeah, it's cool to see him transfer across and be doing crazy stuff. Should have him on the podcast.
Yeah, get him on.
Hey, Mikey, you want to come on the potty?
One last question I have for you.
Right.
What do you want to see from the Back Bone YouTube channel?
From the Back Bone YouTube channel, I think it would just be cool to, like I was saying about the magazine stuff, it's exciting to me when people get to understand what BMX really is about. And I guess that's why I did this podcast, is because it's the easiest way that I can communicate what I love about BMX, and then to get people like yourself on and to be like, we're having this conversation for an hour, and it's hopefully people will watch it, however many people watch it, and they get something from it, and they're like, man, BMX is sick. And maybe they were thinking about quitting BMX, or maybe they haven't even started yet, but they get this feeling from this video or any of the videos with the podcast, and it gets them psyched, essentially. Yep. So for the YouTube channel, I mean, it would be, I just see it as a way to hopefully document what's so good in our scene. Like, I want to be able to go, and that's something that Riss and I talk about a lot, is we want to be able to go and film things like how to build a lip, obviously road trip videos, all these different things. We want to do like a little bit, not necessarily documentaries on the team riders, but show the personality behind the riders and things like that. And while we're here, we just want to document what's sick about BMX. And if of course, like, if the channel grew, like if our YouTube channel grew to the point where then it somehow was making money, and I've got no idea how it's done to a point, like I do to a point, but let's just say it was, then that would just, like when I was speaking to you, kind of jumping all over the place, but when we were speaking a couple of days ago about Mr. Beast on Joe Rogan, and he says that he invests all the money that he makes on his YouTube videos back into making better YouTube videos. To me, that makes sense. Like, you only, like, if you were to make money on BMX videos and then that allows you to invest it to make better ones, it's only going to help. Obviously, it would help you financially, because then that way you don't have to put money, in your own, from your own pocket to do the things. But then you're giving more to the BMX community to get stoked on. If that's the goal, and it is the goal, is to just make more people stoked on BMX, try and show BMX in the right light, and the right, or in what I think is the right light, and just showcase our culture, the scene and what makes BMX so sick. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely an avenue where, like, going back earlier in the conversation, I said it's hard for Australian pro BMXers to make a living. That's an avenue where an Australian pro BMXer could make a living.
Totally, yeah.
And I think, like, it's definitely worth trying. It's definitely, we got to be more open to letting people do what they want, because you never know. Someone doing a podcast like this could be something that grows the industry in Australia.
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's like, I try not to hate on anyone doing anything, because you never know where that could end up. And also, like, if you're having fun, you're having fun. Like, fun's the same for, it might be different things for different people. Like, I like maybe talking to the camera, film myself ride. Someone else might be like, get someone else to film them doing a double peg on a ledge, and like not talking to a camera. Yeah. It's just like finding what you enjoy, I feel. And
yeah, exactly.
if you can make it work for you financially and you get to live a life you're sort of happy, like a life where you're happy is good. So
yeah, totally,
that's how I feel anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely good advice, man. Like, I think fun is fun, and you're 100% right. I think that's good way to finish the podcast, I reckon.
Well, thank you for having me. And
no worries, man. Yeah, I appreciate you being on, and we'll do it again for sure. And can't wait to go out and film and ride with you again. Every time you get me so psyched. So.
Hell yeah, I'm stoked to hear that. That's
thanks,
awesome.
Man. Thank you. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Make sure, like, subscribe, comment, let us know if you got any ideas on what you'd like to see. See you next time. Peace.